Good afternoon. Welcome back from your breakouts. How are the breakouts so far? I just want to take a moment to thank all of our breakout leaders. They are contributing so much to this event, and of course, we feel that the breakouts are the most important part of the event. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Please give it up for our breakout leaders. I didn't even really introduce myself earlier properly. My name is Theresa Libby. I'm a faculty member here in the Human Services Department and and the director of two graduate programs, one in alcohol and drug recovery counseling and the other in co-occurring disorders recovery counseling. It's wonderful to hear panel members talking about their personal recovery as part of their journey for some of them. And you know, just really glad that that is brought into the room. I just can't tell you how grateful I am for all the experience that's been brought into the room this morning. It's moved me. It's moved me emotionally. I may have got a little teary during the panel, like that might have happened. And I really want to take forward what Stephanie Autumn charged us with, which is not just to be educated and moved emotionally, but to put ourselves forward into advocacy and organizing and action and creating change. I have been given a card that says a large hoop earring with a V at the bottom was found in the women's restroom. If it belongs to you, you may claim it at the reservation desk. We're very pleased that you're here for the lunch session, even more pleased that our guests are here for the lunch session. And after the lunch session, we're going to be moving back to the breakout rooms for your afternoon session. We finish up in this room at, I think, at 25 after 3, where it'll just be a little bit of closing stuff. Now I'd like to bring up Dr. Derek Krim, who's also a faculty member in our alcohol and drug counseling programs. He is the coordinator of our undergraduate degree in alcohol and drug counseling, to introduce our guests. Dr. Krim?
Thanks for coming, everyone. Recognized by the Yale Institute of Sacred Music as a conductor of exceptional promise and achievement, Amanda K. Weber is passionate about uniting music, art, and community through her work as an artist and collaborator. Weber's recent focus has been the Voices of Hope, a women's prisons choir at the Minnesota Correctional Facility in Shakopee. Founded by Weber in October 2015, the choir has grown from 15 to 50 singers and collaborated with over 200 musicians from the Twin Cities metro area. Weber's interests in using music as a tool for social justice grew through her work at Luther Place Memorial Church in Washington, D.C., where she founded Bethany's Women of Praise, a choir for homeless women, in 2008. She received a doctorate of musical arts from the University of Minnesota in 2018, a Master of Music degree in choral conducting, at the Yale School of Music and Institute of Sacred Music in 2013, and a BA in Music and Art at Luther College in the year 2008. Please help me in bringing up Amanda Weber.
Thank you so much. That was a lovely introduction. It's hard to speak after somebody introduces you like that. So I'm here today on behalf of the Voices of Hope, as he mentioned, a women's prison choir at the Shakopee facility. And to be clear, these are not them, okay? the choir is unable to leave the facility, which is a fact that somehow surprises people again and again. But I have brought with me instead a number of collaborators, each of whom has sung with Voices of Hope at the prison, some just on one occasion and others quite regularly. We acknowledge that our presence is an imperfect representation of the 55 wonderfully unique singers in Voices of Hope, but we have also come to realize that we have a deep responsibility to helping those voices be heard. So it's our hope that you see us as a kind of megaphone today, amplifying a message of healing and transformation through music. I've structured our time together as a series of songs and stories, and I believe some programs are maybe being passed around that you can follow along. So we're going to start off with our first song. This is called Hamba Nati, and it's from South Africa. It's performance day. Singers are rushing into the choir room to put on robes. They've taken extra care with their hair and makeup today. After all, it's never easy to perform in front of your peers. We sing a few warm-ups, and then I read letters from fans all over the world wishing the women good luck. I only make it through a handful of letters before the women remind me not to make them cry right before their big moment. And then it's time, 6:52 p.m. Kind of an odd start time for a concert, but we had to make sure we'd finish in plenty of time for the women to be released at the 8 o'clock movement. The choir shuffled into the visiting room of the Minnesota Correctional Facility in Shakopee, where an audience of 75 incarcerated women eagerly awaited the prison choir's first concert. That evening, I witnessed the transformative power of music clearer than ever before. I witnessed it in the 25 singers smiling from ear to ear in the moments before our debut. I witnessed it from an enthusiastic and teary audience who clapped within songs. They were so moved. I witnessed it as woman after woman introduced each piece with a personal story, like how they used to sing Lean on Me with their sorority sisters, or how they're drawn to Shenandoah because they love imagining a rolling river even though they haven't been able to see one for years since they've been locked up. I witnessed unabashed joy from each singer, and I watched it spread throughout the room. We started singing together in the fall of 2015, and when we first gathered, I asked the women why they were interested in joining a prison choir. I expected them to say that maybe they used to sing in a choir in school or in church, or that it would be a fun activity to take their minds off of daily life. But what I did not expect was that more than half of the women said they viewed this new class as an opportunity for restorative justice. This response took me by surprise, and it also made me nervous. Here I was thinking I was about to take on a fun, lighthearted volunteer opportunity. But I realized right then and there that I had a responsibility to these new singers to help them find their voices in more ways than one. Are you afraid? People often ask me when they hear I spend every Sunday afternoon in a room filled with 55 criminals. Afraid, I think. I'm more afraid in a room filled with college students. Merely from the perspective of a teacher, I look out each Sunday upon a classroom of the most eager students I have ever had, hungry for self-expression and community. I slowly began to learn of the trauma almost all of these individuals faced before coming to prison, which has clearly been compacted by the re-traumatization of the prison experience itself. These women are stripped of their individual identities, given a number, called offender. For the 75% or more of women at Shakopee who are mothers, as we've already heard this morning, their role as caregiver has been taken away, and they've lost a piece of themselves without the ability to parent. The no-touch policy at Shakopee prevents the staff from touching the women and the women from touching each other, so some women may have gone for years without the sense of positive touch. Many of the women who need treatment are not able to receive it for lack of space and resources. Powerlessness, depression, boredom, distrust, the list goes on, and it is not confined to their time in prison. For what you or I might assume would be the fantastic final day of a sentence is often filled with immense anxiety as the women face the challenges of reintegrating into a society that has already decided who they are and given them no room for change. This is the choir I have the honor of conducting. When people ask me if I'm afraid, there are things that come to mind. I'm afraid for the well-being of women in our society. I'm afraid of the staggering statistics about domestic abuse. I'm afraid when I read a headline like, "Guard charged with having sexual contact with Shakopee prisoner." I'm afraid when I see women leave the prison only to come back a few months later due to some technicality. Singing gives us a chance to cry out from our deepest places of fear and longing. Creativity breeds in that place. Last year, Voices of Hope was invited to write texts which would be set to music by composer Linda Kockelmeyer, who's here with us today. Maybe give a wave. She set an incredible 4-movement piece, and I'd like to play one of those movements for you. The text is here, if you can see it, and the song is called "Lift Me Up." This is Voices of Hope singing the piece at the prison about 1 year ago.
Disappear and hope
After this particular concert, Voices of Hope circled up, as we always do, to spend 30 minutes debriefing with one another. I always invite the singers to go around the circle and each say one word for how they're feeling in that moment following the concert. Everyone insisted that one particular singer, let's call her B, start us off. And I thought it was a little bit weird, but B was kind of a diva, so I figured, what the heck, and I handed her the mic. And Ashley's laughing because she was there, so she knows. So just then, our accompanist started noodling on the piano, and B stood up and started singing. Oh man, I thought she really is a diva. She finished her phrase, and another woman stood up and started singing, and then another woman, and another. And before I knew it, I was in the middle of a full-on flash mob, which was planned and executed so flawlessly by the group during a couple of weeks when I was out of town. They sang "Thank You for the Music" from Mamma Mia, complete with a perfectly timed delivery of tissues right into the hand that was desperately trying to hide my tears. That evening, B said goodbye. She was set to leave the prison just a few days later. She wrote me a thank you note, which included these words: "Our individual suffering paints every square of these walls, but the power of our melodic voices singing together helps to strip the sadness and self-hate bare, leaving only hope. We are given many tools at Shakopee, but none have healed me like music." This work we do as a choir, it's not just a nice thing or a hobby that keeps women out of trouble. It's work. It's a healing and transformative practice. For when all else has been taken away from these women, they still have their voice. Together, we're learning to use our voices for good as singing brings back memories of childhood and reminds the women of their own children. Stories are shared about families in an emotionally safe space, weaving the choir together into a family of its own. We have fun together. Singing releases dopamine in the brain and adrenaline in the body, and nobody said it better than Christina, who after our first big concert exclaimed, "I'm in treatment, and I have never felt a high like that." I'm continually amazed as new singers join the choir and returning ones welcome them with open arms, stepping right up into a leadership position. These women are experiencing more positive self-esteem, exercising creativity, and learning to trust one another. Singing in a choir means having to openly receive critique and work actively towards positive change, developing skills of self-evaluation and communication. This is what we're up to each week. This is the work of healing and community within a deeply isolating space. One singer described the transformation that is possible in such a beautifully articulate way. She wrote, "Through choir, I was reunited with the girl I had lost somewhere along the broken road that brought me here. The girl who sings in the shower, the one who lets music crawl into her heart, sending shivers up and down her spine. The girl who allows music and voice to fill the vast emptiness inside of her with hope. What a blessing it is to be reunited to that forgotten part of myself." So I'd like to teach you a song. It would only be fair if you participated. And this is just a very simple song called "Beauty Before Me." So first I'll teach you the text, and there are hand motions to help remember the directions. You'll see what I'm talking about. So just repeat after me once. Beauty before me. Beauty before me. Beauty behind me. Beauty behind me. Beauty above. Beauty above. And below. And all around. So I'll sing it once for you, and then I'm going to invite you to join in, and we'll do it a few times together. It goes like this. Beauty before me, beauty behind me, beauty above and below and all around. Try that. Beauty before me, beauty behind me, beauty above and below and all around. Let's do it again. Beauty before me, beauty behind me, beauty above and below and all around. One more time, don't be shy. Beauty before me, beauty behind me, beauty above and below and all around. Beautiful voices in the room. Yes, give yourselves a hand. I first learned that song from the Oakdale Community Choir, a choir of half inside singers and half outside singers at a men's correctional facility in Iowa. They start every rehearsal with that song. The choir is directed by Dr. Mary Cohen, who founded the group about 10 years ago. Dr. Cohen is the lead researcher within the field of prison choirs, and yes, it is a field of study. She has published several studies about the effects of singing in a prison on both inside and outside singers, which you can see here in different colored shirts. And she's also in the process of publishing the first book to ever be written on the topic of prison choirs. Dr. Cohen and I have worked closely together along with numerous other colleagues who lead prison choirs across the country. In our sharing, we have learned that we experience similar challenges and similar outcomes. Nearly 3 years ago, with the encouragement of my former supervisor at the Shakopee prison, I adapted Cohen's model of inside and outside singers to the Voices of Hope. We called it our first annual Summer Jam, and for 8 weeks we brought in 16 outside singers to join with 50 inside singers. We weren't quite approved for the 50-50, but maybe in the future, culminating in a joint concert at the prison. We were even able to copy the 2-color shirt concept, so the singers you see today in orange have been long-term collaborators at the prison, and at the prison, Voices of Hope wears the same logo on bright blue shirts. It was during this project that my eyes were really opened to the restorative justice piece of our mission as Voices of Hope. Bringing together insiders and outsiders as equals to create something together was certainly a healing and restorative experience, but perhaps even more importantly, our outside guests experienced a change in their perspective of incarcerated people and a deepened sense of connection and responsibility to the well-being of these individuals, both within the criminal justice system and as they re-enter our shared communities. In completing a program evaluation of Voices of Hope last year, I was able to survey 71 of these collaborators, 93% of whom said that collaborating with the Voices of Hope has changed them in some way, or as one participant said, rewired their approach to how they view the world. 79% said that since collaborating, they think about the criminal justice system and people in prison much more. 100% said they would recommend others to collaborate with the Voices of Hope. We are waiting to hear if we will receive permission to run our 3rd annual Summer Jam this summer. Many of the collaborators you see here today participated in one of the past 2. Maybe would you raise your hand if you did the Summer Jam? Yep, many of them. And they can share their own experiences if you are interested. But the mere fact that they are here today, musicians, most of them, attending a forum on mass incarceration, I think says something about the power of music to link them to a disparate world and a population that would otherwise have remained hidden from their sight. Let's stand. simply by standing next to one another. Oh, my iCloud storage, one moment. You guys, this is the worst. Okay, here we are. Simply by standing next to one another and singing peacefully, hearts are broken, minds are transformed, change is ignited. The unlikely encounters that happen in this space can be remarkable. Like one time when a Voices of Hope singer said that she would be leaving the prison soon and seeking work as an electrician. One of our collaborators shared that she had a close friend who was a female electrician and that she understood how difficult it could be to enter that particular field as a woman. With permission from my supervisor, we were able to give the Voices of Hope singer contact information for that electrician, a networking opportunity that comes so easily to you and me, but is near impossible for someone who is incarcerated. One of the most coincidental and meaningful connections I've witnessed started with a Voices of Hope singer who shared with the group her concern for her 6-year-old daughter who would soon undergo a bone marrow transplant to treat her newly diagnosed cancer. Can you imagine being a mother and being absent for something like that? Well, it just so happened that on that day, I had brought a group of students from the University of Minnesota to the prison, one of whom was a graduate student whose research focused specifically on bone marrow transplants. She was able to tell the Voices of Hope singer exactly how the science would work and reassure her that her daughter was under some of the best care in the country. These are the kinds of moments that occur naturally in choir rehearsals, but are most often discouraged within a prison setting. With safety as a primary concern, it's easy to spiral into imagined dangerous situations of inappropriate sharing between insiders and outsiders. But this must be weighed against how dangerous it is to prevent networking, to cut off ties between incarcerated women and the positive connections they have made during their time in prison, leaving them without much choice but to go back to old habits or destructive relationships. In a recent collaboration, Abby Bettinas, the composer of one of our pieces, was able to come and talk to the choir. Her piece is called Resilience, and it's a favorite of the Voices of Hope. Coming from a seemingly privileged background, there was some skepticism at first about what Abby might be able to say to a group of incarcerated women regarding the topic of resilience. She bravely talked about her experience as a 3-time cancer survivor, and the choir felt a collective surge of empathy. We do not know what each other carries, but we are learning that an important part of sisterhood is to withhold judgment and to stand together. An article was published 4 days ago from the Washington Post announcing that California prison arts programs are in jeopardy of losing their funding. To provide a bit of background, California has long served as the leading state in this field of arts in prison. In 1977, the California Arts Council launched a pilot project featuring an arts program for prisons. In response to its success, the Department of Corrections and Senator Henry Mello partnered to secure $400,000 in funding from the state legislature, and the organization California Arts in Corrections was born. Isn't this quite a sight? While state funding has fluctuated over the decades, this program has continuously provided life-changing opportunities for incarcerated people across the state of California. Yet, as the Washington Post describes, a recent audit found that recidivism rates have remained high, and therefore, arts programming must not be working. Using recidivism rates as the only marker for success is problematic. Do we truly expect that if we give people all the tools they could possibly need on the inside in an artificial environment and send them out, that will be enough? We are making assumptions that the outside doesn't need any work. As a teacher, if I give my class an exam and they all fail it, that's a sign to me that I have messed up. Either I didn't effectively teach the lessons or the exam did not reflect what I taught. This past December, for the first time in 3 years, I was told that we wouldn't be able to have our quarterly Voices of Hope concert. This was devastating news to receive, and more than anything, I was dreading telling the choir. In the week leading up to our next rehearsal, I couldn't sleep. And with tears in my eyes, I told them that their holiday concert, the one thing that was bringing them through this tough time of year, was canceled. I was surprised by their casual response. We're used to this here. It's nothing new. We'll be okay. This made me feel even more upset. I said, you all have taught me so much about resilience, but I feel so sad that you're so good at receiving bad news because it means you've had to do it a lot. And that's not normal. Before I knew it, the whole choir was trying to console me. This is a common occurrence. And the room filled with laughter and words of assurance. Then a quieter voice spoke up. Thank you for telling us this isn't normal, because it helps us imagine that there might be a future for us in which we aren't always disappointed. Maybe there are better things out there for us. We paused for a moment and then did what we do best. We sang. new quarter with 34 returning singers and 22 new ones. I asked the singers, as I always do, to introduce themselves and say something they're passionate about. It's a question I learned to ask early on when I realized I couldn't turn to the usual standbys of where do you work or what is your major. The question, what is something you're passionate about, often gets the response, my children, or nature, animals, even social justice. But as we went around the room, we came to a too young African American woman who paused for a moment and then said that she didn't know what her passions were, that no one had asked her that before, and that she hasn't really had any opportunities to discover what she might be passionate about. In contrast, I ask returning singers to share why they came back to choir for another quarter, or what words of encouragement or advice they might like to offer our new singers. Right away, a hand shot up into the air from a woman who came to Voices of Hope a year and a half ago, quiet and angry, but is now one of the first people to walk in the room each week, greeting our volunteers with a beaming smile. Every time I come back, she said, it's like more love. I don't know how to explain it, but every week I just love everyone in Voices of Hope more and more. Another woman chimed in asking if we could have choir rehearsal every day instead of once a week. The difference between our new and returning singers is striking. You could point out who is new and who is returning just by looking at them. I laughed when the question was asked of whether we could have choir every day, but the more I think about it, the more I understand singing as a type of spiritual practice, like starting the day with yoga or meditation. It helps to center oneself and to practice being in community while the songs take us through a whole host of emotions. Many of the women who sign up to participate in Voices of Hope say that they joined choir partly to step outside of their comfort zones, and I have to admit it has pushed me outside of mine as well. I often find myself confessing in spaces like this that I'm just a musician and that criminal justice was not something I studied or intended to speak publicly about. But perhaps this exercise of stepping outside of one's comfort zone, while painful, isn't such a bad thing. I look at the seemingly unrelated fields of choral singing and corrections, and I've come to believe that working together across disciplines may illuminate new and creative solutions to exhausted issues, which can inform not just the work of prison choirs, but a larger mission of justice and advocacy through singing. It is this end, one of social harmony, to which we are called. Our bodies are our instruments. Our ability to play together requires practice and an intention of togetherness. The Voices of Hope have provided a glimpse into what this might look like, and we have a lot of work to do. I have one more song that I'd like to offer you, but I'm just so thrilled that we do have a former singer with us today, and so I'm going to ask her to share a few words with you, and then we can sing you on your way to the next thing. So Ashley, why don't you come up? Do you want to take this?
Yeah. Hello, everybody. So I just left Shakopee in the beginning of November, so I'm freshly out of Shakopee. And I came to this choir trying to find something. I loved singing, and I had no idea what was in store for me, and I found friendship, I found love, I found just total acceptance no matter what I had done, no matter what my crime was. I was fully accepted by by the people that were in this choir. And then when we were in that room singing, all of us, it was just, we were all one people, and it was just amazing, and I love it, and I'm forever grateful to the choir.
We'll sing our final song and invite you to join in on the chorus. The refrain comes back again and again. You got to put one foot in front of the other and lead with love.
We don't know. We don't know. Okay, give it up again. Thank you so much. Amanda Weber and Voices, women who are sitting here for Voices of Hope. And I also want to hold up the Voices of Hope choir itself, who came to us by recording today. So let's just give it up for them. A couple of things that I want to mention. Don't forget, as we're on this break continues until 1:45, at which time your afternoon breakouts will get started. But don't forget, we have some of our sponsors have tables out here in the reception area. So please pay a visit to them if you haven't already. And there's a flyer for an event that's taking place here at Metro State 2 weeks from now. It's called Breaking Chains, and it's yes, Breaking Chains, put on by the Alcohol and Drug Counseling Coalition of Color and Culture. It's an extraordinary program every year. Grace here has some of the flyers. Thank you, Grace. And the speaker this year is Holly Echohawk. And so come get a flyer, learn a little bit more about her, and come on back in 2 weeks. Yeah. All right. We'll have a final session here in the auditorium at 3:25 and wrap up at 3:45. Enjoy your afternoon breakouts.